Coming at you live from ZZ Top Radio. Sorry, we're recording now.
ZZ Top Radio?
I don't know.
Is that a real thing?
No. Maybe. I hope not. Are we gonna get sued?
If it is, we will bleep it out and then nobody will know what you said. But if it is not a thing, then you just heard Mark being Mark. Anyways, hello everybody.
Solid start.
Hello everybody. Welcome to episode 1 of Highly Unsolicited Book Reviews for, I want to say, invested spouses, but truly the majority of the time I want to say.
That's why the "un" is in parentheses, because right now I'm highly invested, but the first couple times I heard about this,
like the books.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I'm usually telling you, like we're talking on the phone, and you're coming home from work, or like we're at the dinner table, and there could be, I guess, other things that we talk about,
like I'm cooking, or usually it's like I'll be like cleaning or something, and you'll just start talking about the books, and honestly, it's great distraction from cleaning. It's
usually whenever I finish a book. Like if I finish a book, I usually go find you and be like, I finished.
And it's just like, that's it. This is what we're doing. And I'm always here for it. It's honestly some of the best parts of my day.
Oh, you're so sweet.
But we do have to pick a book.
That is your job, my love. I've already read them all.
I know.
So you pick which one you want to talk about or look at or whatever.
I feel like it's only fair, seeing as how you've been in a bit of a slump, that you just caught up to one of your series, that I let you relive the joy that was the Black Witch Chronicles. I'm in like a book hangover. That's always what happens when I really enjoy a series. I can't pick up another book because I'm like too hung up on the last book that I read, or I pick up a book and it's a decent book, but I can't get into it as much as I would normally because I'm still hungover from the previous book or series. So that's kind of what happened with this series. I devoured it in a couple days. Yeah, you started talking about this book series. Like,
it'll say on there what day I started it.
Let's see. Oh my god. Okay, it said 18 hours 12 minutes, and I thought that was how long ago you read it, but no, that is the length of the audiobook. Okay, finished. So you finished the first book on June 11th.
It is June 16th.
Okay, so you know it's been like a week.
Yeah.
5 books in a week, pretty good.
Yeah.
So, the Black Witch Chronicles. Now, there are 5 books that are out in this series.
Kind of.
So did you like stalk the writer and steal a copy?
No. So the series has 2 novellas, and the author created, merged them into one book. So I read the one book version of the 2 novellas, but they're separate novellas. So technically, if we want to be technical, there's 2 novellas and 4 books out right now. And there's going to be a 5th one coming out, but I read it as 5 books.
Understood.
Because the 2 novellas was basically into one. And honestly, they're like, a novella to me is a pretty short book. Those were long novellas. They were basically stories in and of themselves. They were really good as standalones. And they were really enriching to add to the series, I thought.
Okay. Do you think it would be best, having read the books, that we do a couple episodes on this series, or we just blast through all 5 books together as one massive dump? And I don't mean dump as in a steaming dump. I mean a dump as in an info dump.
Like, they're really good, and that's gonna be like the hard part. Like, I read a lot of authors sometimes, so like I've read almost every single Christina Lauren book. I've read almost every single Sarah J. Maas book. That's actually a lie. I have not read every Sarah J. Maas book.
But to be fair, there's a whole library of those.
Yeah, so there's a lot of series or authors that I've read in their entire. What is it? Is it a discography? If it's
no, I don't know if it's called a discography.
What's it called when it's books?
I'll be honest.
Publication list? I don't know. Sure.
Their academic CV. Their literary curriculum vitae.
Yeah.
So I just want to jump in though to say that the series is the Black Witch Chronicles. The first book in that series is called The Black Witch. This is a series written by Laurie Forrest. It is a fiction, fantasy, YA book, adventurist. It's put it down as being slow paced. Does that kind of vibe with you for the first book?
I wouldn't say it's slow paced. I would say it's more medium paced because like a lot of stuff happens. Mm-hmm. And I guess like I'm a little bit of background about me. I'm a history buff. And so when I was reading this whole series, it felt like it was pulling on a lot of historical events that were deeply seated with racism as the driving force. So I really enjoyed it and found it more medium paced, but I could see where some people would think it was slower paced because it does go a lot into things that.
So that's a really good point though, because I do want to touch on that because I remember you were talking about that and I'd like to dive a little deeper on. It seemed like some people had a problem with this book, but
yeah, so I'm only reading it now. Like I think it came out years ago. I don't actually know the date, but I'm reading it in 2014. 2014. Oh my god, 2024. My god, 2024. My apologies.
A whole decade has. It's been 43 years.
Sorry, I'm reading it in 2024. So I think from just some brief reading that I did, there was a lot of like when the book first came out, there was a lot of debate about the series, and I can kind of see where it came from. And to be honest, I haven't looked that much into it, so I'm not the best person to talk on it. But it seemed like a lot of people, or there was some alpha or beta readers that read the series before it came out, and one person reviewed it, saying that it wasn't great because of the focus on racism and the characters themselves being racist. So they kind of said it was a not great book because of that. And that's a fair thing to say. However, I think the reason why I like this book so much is because the main character was racist. She did have biases. She did let things people said color her opinions on other people without really knowing them. And
so like a truly flawed character, not just like, oh, I'm flawed, but actually I only have flaws that are like
superficial or like quickly fixed or whatever.
Or like acceptable flaws.
Yeah. She was a flawed character, and she did educate herself in the first book even, but there are some things that she says and other characters as well that are very racist. And I also want to point out that we're not talking about like racism in the sense of like racism in our world. We're talking about fantasy racism. So the main girl's character, she's like she has like glowing green skin and black hair, and like that's the norm for her. Yeah, so it's
race. more of like a strict
fantasy racism,
a strict racial delineation of there being like, oh, these are actual like demon people. These are like werewolves. Orcs or werewolves or whatever.
There's no orcs. Actually, orcs would have been a good addition.
Yeah, but I feel like they're like the go-to racist. Like that's the enemy. It's just if you're gonna dip into that, it kind of is too on the nose. And there are some people do take umbrage with it. It just seems,
But yeah, like so it's not a perfect book, and that's I think why I liked it. I haven't really read a lot of books where the character is deeply flawed and grows and learns from their mistakes and and goes to people that are knowledgeable in that area to be like, I want to be less biased, like help me understand.
Yeah, no, I definitely got that vibe from when you were talking about it. I do want to though just just to remind you and for me and for the listeners that maybe don't have any understanding of this book. Brief description of book 1. There's a great winged one that will have some fearsome shadow that they're going to spread. That's like a prophecy. There's also this thing called the Black Witch, who has powers beyond imagining. She's like the greatest of all witches, and Carnissa Gardner, the last black witch, drove an enemy army away, saving her people. There's a new evil, and her granddaughter Ellerin. People think she's the new black witch, but she has no powers. She basically is like, she's supposed to be like the granddaughter of like the greatest black witch wizard ever, and she can't do anything. Book 1 is her wanting to go to like a university to try and like find, like she's young, and then she needs to like go to university to find herself and follow in her grandmother's legacy.
Not really.
Again, that's just the summary I'm reading. And then there's like winged fire wielding people as well who are like the enemies. And then it's like an academy story thing. That's the summary I saw. Yeah. She ended up going to a university to avoid basically getting married, or the equivalent of marriage in this series. Okay. So why don't you, because there were a couple things you disagreed with in that description. So can you give me your pitch, like your 2-minute pitch on the plot?
Well, it follows the 18-year-old girl set up to save the world trope. But basically this girl, Eleanor, wait, is her name Eleanor? No.
Ellerin.
Oh my God, I just read it. Ellerin. I'm so sorry. So
Eleanor Digby.
Ellerin basically grew up in like the countryside where there are mixed races there, and her best friend technically is of mixed race. And
give me like what kind of races are we talking here?
So they're called Gardnerians. So they, like I said, they have green skin, black hair, and without any spoilers, they are able to use magic with wands, basically. And they are kind of seen as, like, there's some religious as well as political stuff that goes on as well. So they, like, a lot of people believe that I'm trying to word this in a way that doesn't spoil too much, but basically there's this girl. She was of a minority race that then was able to basically become the dominant race because of the Black Witch. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So the Black Witch was able to kind of free them from slavery and make them more to basically have freedoms, and as the years went on, they became more ingrained in the political system and whatnot.
These are the Gardnerians.
Yes.
Okay.
And so she is the granddaughter of the Black Witch, but she grew up in the countryside with her uncle. Mm-hmm. Her parents died in the war when that her grandmother fought and
got it,
quote unquote, won.
So then now, so now she's 18. She's going to university.
Yeah. Well, she was kind of just living in the countryside, and her aunt shows up one day, and she is actually a part of the political system, and she's a high figure there, and so she wants to get her what's called wand fasted, which is basically married, and
yeah. What? So wand fasting. You basically like binds two people together, but it was like just one person really
very
bound.
Sexist. Like, so sexism, like, there's so much to it. Like, it's such a rich series. So to get into all of it, we'd be here forever. But basically the premise is this girl, her uncle wants her to go to university instead of basically getting married. And when she goes to university, it's her first experience of like the real world outside of her small town. So she, she ends up finding people of other races that she didn't really interact with before, and there's a lot to the plot there, and she kind of comes face to face with the ugly side of what can happen when somebody who is sheltered kind of comes in as the granddaughter of a very well-known person who is hated by many races and beloved by others. So it's not an easy thing to come in, and she kind of finds herself alone in the beginning. She does have some allies, and then it kind of progresses from there.
Well, dang, I'm supposed to make this funny, but that just sounds kind of sad.
Honestly, it's not uplifting. Like, it is. Like, there is, good in it, but it starts off very dark, and there's, you as the reader can kind of see what's going on, and be a little bit more aware that, the main character is being racist. Like, there really isn't another word for it. But I really loved the series. I'm really sad that it's done now.
Right. And from what I understand is that even in this book, she has a bit of a journey where she's encounters other people and then begins to recognize that her prejudices are not necessarily justified.
Correct.
And then questions that, and then educates herself by talking to those people and then trying to understand them. All the while, keep in mind, like, that's a huge plot point. Just, there's also magic.
Yep.
This is magic and fire and danger and stuff going on.
Yeah, and what I really loved about this series is that the magic is race specific, but it's all so different. So every race has some different magic. So there's some races that only the females are able to use the magic.
Sorry, to get back to the other races, because so far we've only really talked about the Gardnerians.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's werewolves. There's
just full on werewolves. That's a race.
Yeah,
so it's not like you can turn into a werewolf.
Shifters.
Okay, because I was gonna say it's not like.
But then there's shifters as a gender, so or general. So like there's shark shifters, there's selkies, there's people who can shift into other animals. There's humans that can turn into dragons. So that's those are all different races in and of themselves. And then there's different.
So we got Shark Boy, Lava Girl. We have Jake Long, American Dragon.
Yeah. There's I can't
think of the name right
now, but there's these people who have purple skin, and they have a bunch of different class systems within their race. Dryads are mentioned a couple times. Elves, fae, all different types of fae, death fae, water fae, air fae, wind fae. Yeah, so it's a lot.
Okay, because I think that helps color the world a little bit more. That
Absolutely.
It's just this is necessarily one group of people, but there's a whole whack load of different people.
Yeah, and also religions too. Whole bunch of different religions. So the Gardnerians had their own religion.
Does it have any? I mean, is it gardening related? Are they nature people, or is it really that on the nose, or is it
yeah, they're nature based without giving some major spoilers away.
So they
use elemental magic. Yes.
Yes. So there's an entire race of people who uses elemental nature magic, and they're called Gardnerians.
Yeah.
Because they're gardeners.
I did not think of that until you said that, but I guess so. Yes.
Woof. All right. Hey, you know what? Just goes to show. Just start writing your own book, because.
And I do have to say, listen to the audiobook. So I don't even know how Gardnerian is spelled.
It's literally spelled garden and then Irian.
Yeah.
Ay.
Anyways,
okay.
And like I was saying, the religious aspect is a huge part of it as well. So for instance, there's a group of women who live in a separate village, and it's just women, and they believe that all men are basically evil and they're only good for breeding. And so they have fertility periods where the women will go out just to have babies, and then if they birth a son, they reject them. So it's a group of just women, and they believe that only women women are supreme, and they have a goddess. And so religion is a huge aspect of it as well. It's not just race. And what I kind of liked about this series is it did call on some aspects to religions that we are familiar with, but they were fairly unique in and of themselves. So it was honestly a great series. I loved it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's nice to hear it from a little bit more of a detailed perspective, because just catching snippets of it, I have to admit, it was like, I'm reading this book. Yeah, it's racist. It's racist, and I really like it. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. And then there's like these people, and they're just like they're gonna be like married against their will, and I'm like, Then they run away, and I'm like, okay, good. Yeah. And then they get better. Okay, good.
Yeah, and I do want to say, like, this is not a spoiler-free review.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely going to be talking about, key aspects of the. I mean, that's the whole point, right? It's supposed to be a book review. So
yeah.
At the very least, for the uninitiated like myself, it's nice to know that kind of what to expect.
Yeah.
But.
And I don't give away 5-star reviews easily. I have to really be impressed by a book, and it really has to stick with me after I read it for it to be considered a 5-star book for me. And this entire series pretty much was a 5-star read for me. So that is saying something for myself. Like I said, I've read over 200 books this year so far, and I think only about 20 of them have been 5-star, and some of those are multiple books within a series. So if we're looking at like series as a 5-star review, that number is even less. And this is definitely on that list. So it's top tier for me.
That's really impressive.
Top 10%.
Maybe then I'll read this series.
Oh my gosh.
First time in
Don't get me too excited.
First time in 10 years that I'll read them. I have,
I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. We'd have to redo this episode. We'd have to do another episode.
Yeah, there would be a redux, a 1.5 to episode 1.5 at some point. It'll come way later. way later. I do love reading, but they don't dedicate a lot of time to it.
I also have to say that I listen to a lot of books at double speed, so that's how I get through books really quickly.
I can't believe you do that. Listener, you have to understand.
Many people do this.
I sometimes will just be walking around the house, and Jess will have her headphones in, but it's like those older style AirPods where you can still kind of hear. They're not like really noise canceling. They don't like seal up. And I just hear, I'm like, it's like chipmunks yattering plot into her ear.
I literally cannot listen at like one speed anymore. And I actually speed up like a lot of things. So like if I'm listening to a podcast, I'll listen to it faster. If I'm listening to like sent voice notes from like Facebook Messenger, I'll speed it up. People talk too slow.
I'm just baffled. Absolutely. Like the idea that our brains just process information differently, I
had to build up to it. Like originally I was listening at regular speed, and then I thought it was a little bit slow. So I sped it up to, I think 1.5. And then from there, I kind of found that to be a little bit more slow, and then went to 1.75, and I was pretty happy with that speed for a while. But then there was a book that I was a part of a series that I didn't actually really want to finish, but I wanted to know how the series ended because it was the last book. So I was like, I'll listen to this at double speed. It doesn't matter if I miss half of it. But then I was actually able to listen to it and absorb it. So now I listen to things at double speed. But if I'm like doing something that I have to like, really think about, pay attention to it or whatever, then I'll slow it down. Like if I'm listening in the shower, I listen at slower speed.
I got you. Anytime you're in a public space, you think someone might judge you, you just slow it down a little bit.
No, because they can't hear what I'm reading. So
I know.
But I do like put the volume down when smut comes on in the car.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's happened like 5 or 6 times. Jess will be like, Mark, I'm really enjoying this book. Like you should listen to it. And I'm like, fine. Like no problem. Like we're driving somewhere, put it on the car. Our daughter's in the back. She's like looking out the window, babbling to herself, playing with her toes. And then Jess is like, turns on the audiobook and it's like, how dare you say that to me? He grabbed her viciously around the throat. Oh my gosh. I'm like, what is that? What? You're just like in the car with our child?
I usually, if smut starts when I'm listening out loud, I do stop it. I do. because I don't know.
I would.
She's 1.5. It's not like she truly understands it, but I don't want her listening to that. So I do stop if it's that situation.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Anyways.
So, Black Witch Chronicles, book number 1. We've got a 5-star glowing review.
Yep.
Looking forward to hearing about book 2.
Honestly, I don't even know if we need to go into each of them separately, because if you're interested in reading this book, to do each book individually would really spoil things for the rest of the series. If you've already read it, like, I feel like you either love this book or hate this book. I don't think there's really an in-between, because it is a different style. Like, it is heavier than a lot of some of the reads that I've read. Like, you know, for the most part, we like to read books about heroes, and they're, even if they are flawed, they're not deeply flawed in a way that is offensive, usually. Right. And when they do have their character arc, it's like this golden shining thing. And honestly, I don't really feel like this book follows that mold. So I can see where some people wouldn't like it, or not finish it, or take serious issue with some of the things that are written in there, and some of the things that the main character says, because it is racist. Like, there's no way to say it otherwise.
Yeah, it seemed like from what you were saying that there seems to draw from some historical events. Like, it seems to draw from some of the World War II era, you know, like ethnic cleansing ideals, because there are so many of these different races, and some of them grow or gain power, and that's not necessarily, you know, use that power, you know, any appropriate way.
Or use it to benefit just their race. Yeah.
Right. Cool. Well, listen, it sounds like it's a great... I'm really glad we talked about it, because I probably will read this first book now and let you know how it goes. But I guess that's a wrap for the Black Witch Chronicles. Yeah,
I seriously loved it. The last book, it maybe is more like a 4.75 star for me. So not the last book in the series, that hasn't come out yet as of right now. So that book comes out in January 2025. It was called The Demon Tide. It was a little long, in my opinion, so that lost like a 0.25 points for me. But as a whole, the series is very good, and I would highly recommend it to anybody who would be interested in reading, you know, a coming of age, chosen one type series that, you know, has some darker themes, some pretty dark themes, but it is still YA, so it doesn't go into too much graphic details, but it does deal with some serious stuff like sex trafficking, racism, political issues. Yeah.
Okay.
Dark stuff.
Well, I look forward to reading it. And to all of our listeners, our many ones of listeners, two, because we've both listened to it. So at least we have 2 listeners.
Yeah.
Me and you.
I'm going to be interested to see if this series, every episodes we do, you end up being like, yeah, I'm going to read this book now.
Honestly, it might end up being like that. And if that's the case, dear listener, you'll never hear from me again, because it will take me way longer to read 200 books. Jess, hit us with that characteristic end of episode thing that you do every time.
Wait, are we done?
Yes, we're done.